There we go. Welcome everybody to the Frost-Arnett Lead and Learn webinar series. My name is Clint Jones and I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Frost-Arnett. And today I have the wonderful pleasure of having with me Kalanzia Gibson. Kalanzia, take a minute and say hey to everybody.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kalanzia Gibson. I'm the coding manager here at Frost-Arnett. It's a pleasure to be one of your speakers today on the call.
Awesome. Well, we're going to jump right in. Obviously, there will be people that will continue to trickle in. But first of all, we're very glad to have you. Thank you for being a part of our webinar. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Hopefully, everybody's off camera, maybe taking a little lunch break or grabbing something to drink. So we're going to jump right in. The concept of our webinar series is Lead, Learn, and Legislation. And so as we've started the tradition of last month, we'll start out with some leadership ideas and topics. We'll run through those, kind of keep it fast-paced, a little engaging and exciting, hopefully. And then we'll also jump in and do a learning series where we're going to talk about coding, kind of the state of coding in the industry today, hopefully give you some good tips and pointers that'll help you in terms of your business and working with your organization. And then we'll wrap up with some legislative updates, some that are hot off the presses as recent as this week. So with that, we will jump right in. A little bit of housekeeping, just so everybody knows, obviously your microphones are muted. You probably figured that part out. So if you want to raise your hand to ask a question, you can definitely do that. I've got several screens going right now, so I probably won't be able to see chat and things like that like I sometimes can. But if you have a technical question or need some kind of feedback that's not related to specifically what we're discussing, you can drop that in the chat and Ms. Brooks will be happy to help you with that. Do want to let everybody know that we are recording and transcribing. So everything that we'll talk about today from beginning to end will be uploaded to our website. You'll be able to go back and reference that or send it to other people. We also have a one-pager. That's a misnomer because it's front and back, so it's really 2 pages. But we do have a one-page summary that will also accompany that. And all of those will live on our webinar page on our website. And so you'll always have access to those each month as we add additional ones. Really excited about next month's as well, but I'm going to wait and save that to the end because this is the Kalanzia show, and so we're excited to have her. And so we're going to just focus on that for now. But I will share with you towards the end some things that we're going to be doing that are really exciting in August, and that'll coordinate with our August Lead and Learn. So I'm excited that people are continuing to jump on. Again, welcome. So we'll jump in and talk about leadership for a minute. I found a really cool reference or resource for today just to talk about leadership in terms of the 5 C's. I'm usually not a big fan of things like this where it's like the first letter of a word, makes out all these different things, or all C's. Sometimes it's a little corny, but I did like this one because it's easy to remember, and I think it's something that'll kind of stick with you. So, Kalanzia, I might even ask you to, pop in and share any situations that you may have had with some of these if you want to and are comfortable. But don't want to put anybody on the spot, obviously. So, collaboration, that's one of the things that I think a lot of leaders miss. I've had leaders that have been great collaborators. Those are the ones I've learned the most from. But I've had some that, they just kind of stay at a distance and it's all about kind of dictating this and that, and they don't really want input and feedback. But when you create a collaborative environment with your team, you're going to be more successful. You're going to have better production. You're going to have better morale. And you're also going to be able to give people a better chance to participate, to engage, to contribute, and be able to help them in terms of bettering their career and being able to really know who your leaders are going to be and how to help them succeed and grow in their current job. Obviously, communicate. That's kind of a kind of one, I guess you'd say. So that's one of the ones that is really important, though, because again, some people don't know how to communicate well, or they don't communicate enough, and that's probably one that I need to work on. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of plates spinning in the air like we all have, and sometimes we forget to say, you know what, I bet X, Y, and Z would benefit from hearing that or from knowing about that. And so kind of being that conduit of information from one team to the next, or from leadership to the rest of the teams, or things like that, it's just extremely important in terms of being a great leader. Kalanzia, you want to kind of off the cuff, I didn't ask you to pitch in on those, but any thoughts about those two before we move on?
No, I absolutely agree with you. Collaboration and communication, especially in the field of HRM and coding in general, communication, those guidelines and amendments that change quarterly, yearly. So having a good communication in a collaborative environment, especially in the realm of medical coding, is very, very vital and important.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see what the other 3 are. Boy, being candid, that's a tough one. I've known I've known managers, I've had peers, I've had managers and people that worked on my team that just had a hard time being candid. And, one of my frustrations as a leader is asking somebody, are we good? Does that make sense? Are we on the same page? Only to find out that you're not at all. And there was that candid piece of the conversation was not there. And a lot of times that needs to be driven by the leader. That needs to be driven by the person that started the conversation or that has the challenge or is trying to fix whatever it is. Hey, Marcy. Marcy just jumped on, or she's fixing to. And so I think being candid is extremely important, and that goes both ways. That goes in terms of talking to your leadership, but especially as being a leader and being able to be candid and authentic, but also, very important to have empathy and being able to give and receive that authentic feedback. That's very important. Connection. One of the things that I always try to do when I start a meeting is just slow down. Hey, how was your weekend? How are things going? I try to, I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I try to remember, what did we talk about last week, or what did they do over the weekend that I should, or that I could ask about or dig in on. So just trying to make a connection. You don't have to get all up in their business. You don't have to know, all their personal stuff. But if somebody said, hey, it was my 9-year-old's birthday, remember that, ask about it. Try to make a connection and keep it from always being so intensely business oriented in everything that you talk about. And then care. I mean, that goes to the empathy piece of it. And that really kind of ties over to all of these different pieces in terms of having that empathy and being able to understand and care and be flexible and be understanding and be accommodating as much as you can. Is HR on this? No, I'm checking. But care about your people and show that, and don't just give it lip service, but really try to make a difference. So those are our 5 C's of leadership. We hope that helps and gives you a little takeaway. Hopefully the C's part, that'll help you remember some of these. I wouldn't say one is more important than the other, but if you collaborate and communicate and you have empathy, I think you'll go a long way as a leader. And we all have leadership roles, regardless of what our position or our title is. So hopefully that helped. As promised, our second section today is going to be learning, and that's going to be specific to coding. So I'm going to just kind of hand it over to Kalanzia, and I'll probably butt in and interrupt her a little bit here and there and maybe ask some questions because I'm still learning as well. I've been around coding and healthcare for about 20 years, but the last 2 years I've really been able to dig into it more than ever before. So Kalanzia, let me know where I can help or pitch in, but I'm going to let you kind of take it and run with it.
Sounds good. Well, as I mentioned, thank you so much for having me today, Clint. I've had just a little bit about me. I've been in the field of HIM for a little over 11 years, going on 12. Many different industries, from working with the state, hospitals, working with insurance companies, etc. So today we'll be covering the medical coding best practices and industry insights. So let's just start. What is medical coding? Coders look at a massive amount of information per patient encounter. So let's just say we have a patient that presents to the ER or office with sore throat, enlarged lymph nodes, and a fever. That is documented in the patient's medical record / EMR system, along with any procedures and prescriptions that the medical provider provides. In a straightforward case like this, the doctor will officially report his diagnosis, he or she diagnoses, but that still means a portion of the record will need to be coded containing the diagnoses, the procedures, and the prescriptions that were prescribed. Now, as conditions, illnesses, injuries become more complex, the amount of information and data that is needed to be conveyed to the insurance companies increase significantly. So at its core, medical coding is turning healthcare diagnoses, procedures, medical equipment, and medical services into a universal medical alphanumeric code used in claims to be paid by the insurance carrier. Next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am. There we go.
So, what is a coding audit? Coding audits are often part of the medical coding process. A coding audit usually includes internal and external review of medical coding and billing accuracy. It also includes other components that affect the medical record documentation in order to catch or capture potential compliance errors that could result into liability and investigation. So in the end, a successful audit would help the healthcare organization basically standardize an outstanding business practice by identifying errors within the organization. Would you like to add, Clint, or we can go to the next slide?
No, that's good because auditing it's a big thing that we talk a lot about. We get a lot of questions and calls about auditing. So this is an important piece for everyone to understand.
So what is the importance of a medical audit? Coding audits are very, very important to ensure not only that the medical coding that is being performed is done properly, but it also identifies areas within the practice or the system that could potentially lose revenue, overcoding, and denials. The list goes on and on. As well as it takes a look at any compliance concerns or areas for improvement that are needed as well. Next slide, please. For those that are in the medical coding industry, there are a various amount of certification types. So I pulled two of the most well-known and highly looked upon organizations. One being AHIMA, and the next one you will see on our slide is AAPC. But I wanted to provide a visual of some of the common certification types you will see for AHIMA. Now, please keep in mind, this does not embody all of the certifications that these organizations offer. For example, you have a certification provided by AHIMA for auditing services, for CDI, clinical documentation improvement, for healthcare informatics and information system, privacy and security. The list goes on for both organizations. So there are a plethora of certifications that one can obtain. Next slide, please.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I went backwards, didn't I?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, along with AHIMA, AAPC offers coding certification types as well. But if I could bring your attention to the smaller boxes that you see listed, AAPC offers medical specialist specific certification. So let's just say we have a dermatologist office that is looking for a coder that specializes in dermatology. As you can see, there is a dermatology specific certification that's the CPCD that a coder can obtain. So there are many, many, many certifications for each medical specialty in each organization as well. Would you like to add, Clint?
I just have a question. Is it coding's fault that we have all these acronyms and letters that we do in healthcare? Like, did that all originate from the coding world?
Well, because coding is so complex, you have different settings, you got different avenues, you got different specialties. You want somebody that is basically a specialist in whatever area that you're pertaining to. So if I have an inpatient coder that has experience coding pediatrics or OB, well, that dermatologist office probably won't get the coding that they need. Even though he or she is a specialist, you probably will need someone that's specialized in that dermatology or have that experience, But teaching them won't be a problem. But yes, it's so many. That's just coding related. So when we get into auditing and everything else, yeah, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, good stuff.
So the expected growth, this is my favorite page, okay? Because the medical coding industry is really, really high. It's a very high industry to be in right now. So please understand there is a need for coders. It is expected by the BLS that between 2019 and 2029, the need for coders will grow by 8%. So that's a much faster rate than average. Next slide, please.
I'm trying to answer chats. So, yeah, sorry, I'm being quick. There you go.
Do we have a question?
She wants to know if we're going to do the slides. So if anybody wants to email me directly, I'll be happy to send them the slides in a PowerPoint. Yep.
Okay, so part of the reason for the accelerated growth in the medical coding industry is that we're currently experiencing a shortage of staff, of working staff. So why is there shortage? Because of lack of qualified candidates. large scale retirement, and of course the retirement of the baby boomers generation as well.
Yeah, claims that, one of the ones we didn't put on here that I think I'm hearing more and more of is there's a lot of organizations that either are not capable of or willing to hire outside their area. And so geographically, if I'm bound to these couple of zip codes where my hospital or doctor's office is, then obviously I can't hire people in other states or other areas. And so my pool is much more limited. Does that resonate with you as well?
Oh, absolutely. Mainly because typically, depending on what area you're in, most areas, like let's just say if we have Colorado behavior health, you need to know the Colorado standards, the qualification, all of the coding, because each state you have different regulations, different everything within each facility. So if you keep it to a generic geometrical area, you don't have to worry about getting those unqualified candidates. They already kind of know the policies and procedures of that state. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yes.
Let me ask you another question too before we go to the next slide. When you think about the shortage, I know a lot of people on this call probably have, kids, grandkids, whatever, people in high school or college trying to figure out what to do with life. What does the coding certification look like, and how hard is it to get a job in coding right out of, certification?
Well, there are that's why I mentioned it's many types of certifications. So for my area of expertise, I have what is called a RHIT. And basically it's a small aspect of coding, but I am able to venture off and do management within the healthcare organization, deal with revenue, helping the overall spectrum, not just coding. So if you have someone that's going into medical coding, I would actually try to zone into the area that they're wanting to do. So if you are wanting to aim towards pediatrics, things of that nature, I will typically go and get my either CPC or my CCS. One of each is from AHIMA or AAPC. That gives you a generic baseline for coding, and then I will go back and do a specialized coding certificate. So let's just say for that dermatologist office, if I wanted to strictly do dermatology, I will have that core coding certification plus be a specialist in that specialty certification. So that's typically what you'll see. And then there are the high class certifications that include the management, the leadership, and all of that as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, is certification, is it pretty much a requirement these days? Is that for liability reasons?
For liability reasons, I am unsure, but typically it is a requirement now. Now I can say in 2015, when I was an HIM director, I walked into a facility and none of my coders were certified. So you do have those instances where people can't find coders and they have to just employ people that have years of experience, things of that nature. So of course made my coders get certified because that's just, the more they, but you do have those instances where coders are not certified and they need to be certified. Yes, sir.
And it seems to me like it's a bit like accounting. It changes every year. I mean, are there constant updates to ICDs and diagnosis codes and things like that?
Of course. So you see the large scale retirement in 2000 and I'll say 10. We transitioned from ICD-10. We transitioned to ICD-10 from ICD-9. Well, those people that have been coding for years, they did not want to learn all the new code sets. They didn't want to do all that. So that's why you see a mass amount of coders that left the scenes when we transferred from ICD-9 to 10. So learning that, and especially because of all of the changes that we encounter. So for example, when COVID hit, we needed codes for that. That was something new we never had. So immediately it has to be changed. Immediately it has to be amended. So depending on the situation, sometimes depending on ICD-9, you got HISPICS, you got CPT, all of them are changed according to what is needed that time for the coders to accurately code.
Okay. Sounds good. What about, and I don't expect you to know this or really have it, from the hip, but what about pay scales? I mean, is there a trend one way or the other in terms of is pay going up with coding? Is a lot more of it being outsourced? Are people still trying to keep it in house? But what have you seen the pay scale do over the last 5 years?
Pay is going up tremendously for coders because of the requirements for coders. Like majority of the positions that you're going to apply for, you're going to see that they need more than 2 years of experience. You need not only experience in the industry, but these top of the line EMR systems like Epic. You need to know how to use the encoder like 3M. So getting those qualified candidates, you're going to have to really pay them some money. So whereas previously in a couple years ago, like I mentioned, that you had coders that were not certified. Nowadays, you will not find a coder that's coding that's not certified, because honestly, if you code incorrectly, that can mess up your revenue. Denials, appeals is more on the back end, and that will affect your finances and revenue to not even embark on the adventure of hiring somebody that's not qualified. So yes, you will have to come because it is limited qualified staff. You will have to pay, and also look for outsourcing as well. Like that is a great option, because when I encountered my issue with the previous employer I was at that didn't have certified coders, I outsourced. I didn't know what else to do, and they came through and they helped me tremendously until my coders were able to obtain their certifications.
Yep, sounds good. Well, that's a perfect segue. Well, what are some common problems?
Okay, so let me click back over. Okay, here are some common problems that arise in medical coding that some of the coders may actually experience. You have poor documentation, misdocumentation. You have poor management strategies, unbundling. You have not coding to the highest level of specificity, under or over coding, and failure to use current or up-to-date code sets and guidelines as well.
Okay.
Okay, this is the portion of the presentation that I will do today. I think, Clint, I'm gonna hand it to you so you can conclude the medical best practices and the rest of it. But I will be here to add on and add any concerns as such. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just wanted to be able to bring in some best practices. We've already probably talked about a few of them, but just to think kind of bigger picture in terms of what you're looking for as a provider. One of the golden rules of healthcare billing and coding is don't code or bill for if it's not documented. It's like running a sales numbers. It's really like running a sales team. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. But that's the case in a lot of environments in business. And so obviously that is one of the biggest standards that you need to look for. Invest in staff training, stay up to date with coding changes. There's a lot of different ways to do that. That's one of the reasons that we brought Kalanzia is we just needed, beyond just the fact that we've been managing a coding team for 10 years, we needed to be able to break out of that mold and be able to be more current and more cutting edge, and be ahead of the curve, or at least caught up with the curve so the curve doesn't bite us at some point. So that's always extremely important. A lot of ways to do that, both in-house, but also you can contract that out as well. Include the patient. Medical practices that establish these relationships and create some kind of an open line of communication, whether it's through an app with your ADT system, or whether it's just giving your clinical documentation workers access to be able to talk to patients and talk to the physicians and be able to kind of be that conduit to make sure they truly understand what's going on, just to make it a better experience for everybody. Because obviously, I hate to say this, but the provider, all of you that are on here that are providers, you're stuck in the middle. You're the one that's kind of stuck in the middle between the payer and the patient. And so the more communication you can have, the more effective you're going to be and your coding team is going to be for sure. A couple more: know your carriers, payers, whatever you want to call them. But the better you know them and interact with them and engage with them, and get on their email list, get on their they do these blasts where they send out information and updates, because somebody made a joke earlier that it changes daily. They can send out a bulletin and post it on their website, and all of a sudden next thing you know, something's changed, and it's not in your contract, but they changed it. And so they'll say, well, we notified you. Well, that's great, but it was Friday afternoon at 8 o'clock and I was at a baseball game, or whatever. So that's really important, is to be able to work well with your carriers and dig in and build those relationships. And then also, consider outsourcing. It doesn't say that in here, but reliable billing company, medical billing companies are up to date. A little different for acute versus ambulatory. So obviously those are two different conversations. The other thing that I would add on here too is, without this being a commercial for Frost-Arnett, but it's really important to understand when it comes to pricing. Are you looking for a quick fix to help me just get things stood up and in the right direction, or are you potentially looking for a long-term solution? And so the way we've decided to approach ours is more of a long-term solution. We'll do some shorter projects, but we don't price it that way. We've talked to some people that want to come in and, hey, we'll do a 3 to 4, 5, 6 month project, and their rates are twice ours. And so we've tried to price ours so that obviously it's more specific to inpatient versus outpatient and those types of things because of the skill level that's required there. But really dig in and try to make sure you have the right partner if you're looking for something that's going to extend outside of your organization and be a partnership. Anything you want to add, Clancy, or did I butcher any of those? Those all okay?
That was great, Clint. That's great.
Okay, well that's our coding education. So we're gonna move on from this point. Thanks for all the interaction. I appreciate some of the comments and questions and whatnot. I did drop my email address in the chat, so if you would like to get the slides and not just the one pager, feel free to email me and I'll get that out to you. Again, for some of you that jumped on late, we do have a full recording that'll be on our website in the next couple of days. Also, it'll have a one pager that has kind of a high overview. It's really front and back, so it's 2 pages. But that information will be posted on our website here in the next couple of days. Okay, so we're going to jump on and we're going to wrap up with legislation and hit a couple of high points here, and we'll probably wrap this up here in the next few minutes. So, does this? Okay. I opened the wrong deck. I pulled it from the wrong spot. Okay, well I'll just have to voice over this one then. I had pasted all of these into the deck, so my bad. Okay, so we're going to hit on No Surprises Act just real quick. We're not digging into it like we used to. And so I want to just throw some things at you that are really important for you to understand as a provider. Let me drag this back over to make sure. Sorry, I'm looking for my PowerPoint because I clicked it. Hang on, give me just a sec. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to run through a few things that are specific to, go back one slide, No Surprises Act. Here we go. Some things are important to understand about No Surprises. Patients can easily submit a complaint if your bill is at least $400 more than their estimate. So it's getting easier and easier. There's a lot of templates out there. So really be focused on that and understand. A lot of companies will partner with their providers, a lot of providers too. Once a dispute comes through, they just ignore that account or write it off. It kind of goes away. So to eliminate some of that, make sure that you're getting accurate estimates and communicating well with your patients. Patients can also submit a complaint directly to CMS if they feel like a provider is not following the NSA rules. That's a big deal because then it makes it a much bigger issue a lot quicker. Last thing you want is CMS breathing down your neck and asking you questions. Patients are only liable for their in-network cost sharing amount. This is the whole balance billing thing. So remember that if you have, an anesthesiologist that's in the room, or if you have a radiologist that's involved, or you're doing some lab work during surgery, those types of things where you have multiple organizations potentially involved in a procedure or in something that's going on with the patient. The patient only has to pay what's in network and their cost sharing amount. You can't balance bill. Patients should receive a good faith estimate upon scheduling or upon request. Now there are some other guidelines about if it's within 3 days and that type of thing, but generally speaking, when something is scheduled, they should receive a good faith estimate upon scheduling, and then anytime they request it, you should be able to provide that. The No Surprises Act, its main intention was just to eliminate balance billing. I've been in healthcare for 20-something years. I can't tell you how many times, even as a patient, I have been balance billed. And a lot of times it's just because the paperwork, the machine just continues to churn out bills and there weren't processes in place. And then the final point I'll make just for the No Surprises Act, that health plans, the insurance company, they must cover surprise bills at in-network rates. They're required to do that. Now, there's a lot more detail about that and how that works. Someone can choose to go out of network, but they have to acknowledge that and they have to sign that. So there is some process there on that piece. Jumping over to price transparency. Am I the only one that's tired of talking about price transparency? But it's real and it's here. And so it's important that we understand it. So a couple of high level, just fast facts about price transparency to update everyone. So first of all, a lot of people don't realize this, but the hospital provider piece, which everybody knows started in January of 21, well, then the payers have some obligations as well. So the first payer rule kicked in. It's supposed to be January of 22, but they delayed it till July, so July of 22. And they actually have 2 more phases. And so it's a certain number of things, and then it's the whole thing, and this is the machine readable. But they got to do theirs in phases where hospitals didn't. But the one thing that I really want everybody to take away, this really frustrates me when I'm listening to people talk, especially when they're providers or people that are on a panel or in front of a group and they don't understand this. The machine readable file is not and never was intended to be for patients. So if you're caught up in that, or you have thought that or heard that, please understand that if you go back and read the rule, the machine readable file was intended for aggregators, for third-party companies to be able to gather that data and create shopping services. And so please don't get hung up on that and go, why are we doing that? Or that's so ridiculous, or whatever. It's, I'll even go so far as to say a lot of people are just putting Excel files out there. Excel file is not machine readable. It's supposed to be a CSV, and there's a couple of other examples of what kind of file it can be. So just please know that and understand that so that you can speak in a way that's intelligent in terms of the way it works. Another thing that a lot of people don't know is that in lieu of providing standard charges, which is the way the rule is written, if you have a service or technology that's providing a full actual estimate for the patient, then that actually is a substitution. And if you need to know where to find that, let me know, because it was actually in a Q&A that CMS did where there's a recording and a transcript where they said, yeah, absolutely. If you're providing a full-blown patient estimate, then that can substitute for the standard charges. A couple of fast facts and data points. 74% of patients would rather pay $50 than not know the cost of a primary care visit. Think about that for a minute. 74% of patients would rather pay $50 than not know the cost of primary care visit. Another one is that 49% of patients say having a clear estimate will affect whether they see a certain provider. That's a big one as well. I just noticed that because I grabbed the wrong deck, we've had 2 or 3 decks running around, that there's a couple of data points that are not on here. So for any of you that just have 2 seconds to bear with me, I'm just going to open this other one and see if I snagged the wrong one, because it's titled correctly, but there are 2 other things. One was a data breach that I wanted to share with you. The other one's about CFPB. So give me just a second, and I apologize, but we're new at this, and actually using Teams as a webinar platform is new to us. So we're trying to run through all of this and get it right. So I'm going to go to my Lead and Learn folder, and I bet this is where it is. Yep, final 713. Let me go to the end, make sure this is the one that I. Yep. Okay, so I'm just going to switch decks real quick. Never done this in the middle of a webinar, but let's see how this works. So did that stop sharing, Clanzia?
Yes, it did.
All right, here we go. Let me share again. This is so fun. Okay, let me jump back out and share again. And this will just take, there's just 2 more slides, but these are really relevant and stuff that applies to everybody, not just coding. So let me go back to my Lead and Learn. All right, we're in business, right?
Perfect.
Okay. Now, if I go all the way to the end, can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me jump down to the end, the do you knows. So I had these listed, the things that I just went over. So if anybody requested the deck, those will actually be printed in here. So that was the No Surprises Act. This was the price transparency one. Medical credit cards and installment loans. This is new as of this week. There was a hearing on July the 11th, which was, what's today, the 13th, 2 days ago. It's a focus on medical payment products like medical credit cards, care credit, but also installment loans. And so they're taking a really close look at that. And what that's doing to healthcare, and not everybody really understands the motive yet and where that's going to go. But health expenditures account for more than 18% of our country's gross domestic product, with consumers' out-of-pocket expenses accounting for an overwhelming $433 billion. And so that is definitely something to keep an eye on. If CFPB is focusing on that, it means that there could be some changes coming whether it's rules or legislation or whatnot. So that's really important to keep an eye on, especially if you're working with one of those or shopping for one. And looking for a partner to help you with that. Just keep an eye on that. I'm not trying to ring the alarm yet, but it's just something everybody needs to know about. And then this is the last one. I don't know if anybody heard, but Monday, HCA announced a healthcare data breach. It was 11 million patients. I'm not trying to be cynical, but at this point, I just assume anybody that wants access to my data has it. And I know that's not an excuse, and that doesn't make it okay. But obviously, it's getting worse and worse. And at this point, it doesn't look like it was ransom. It looks like it was just data that was accessed, and looks like it was probably most of it, but they're still digging in to figure out what all was accessed and taken. So I thought those were really important just to bring to you, not necessarily legislative specifically, but very important in terms of industry updates and things that are important to watch. So with that, Ms. Calangia, do you have anything else you want to jump in and chat about?
Nothing else to add, Clint. Thank you.
Let me just check chat real quick, see who's laughing at me about the deck. Oh, thanks for the support. Appreciate that. Again, my email address is in the chat, so please email me directly if you'd like the slide deck. I'll be happy to put it in a PDF and send it over. Again, as we've said before, our Lead and Learn webinar series is going to be somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes. It'll just depend on how things are going and what the topic is. In the month of August, we're launching a white paper. It's called NetBack, and it's all about in a contingency-based environment when it comes to AR, which is more important, the contingency rate or the recovery rate. And so you're going to be seeing a lot of that through different social media, through different media outlets. We're going to actually launch the white paper. And so next month's Lead and Learn topic is going to be that white paper specifically. So please plan to attend, look for the invites. Try not to unsubscribe. We try not to send out too many emails, but we do like to remind people and get people engaged. Please feel free to share this with other people. We'd love to have you back with us in August. Next month, we'll have Jason Meyer, our CEO, on with us. He's the one that actually wrote the white paper, and he actually used real numbers from one of our clients. So it'll be a really exciting one, and it'll have some really good data points in it to be able to take back and think about in terms of partnering with other companies like us. So Calangia, thanks again for being with us. We really appreciate your time. Everyone that joined, thank you for being with us. Thanks for believing in us and spending a few minutes with us. Everybody have a great lunch and a great Thursday, and we will see everybody back here in August.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. See you.
Bye.